I was on that corner, trying to get my coins up. Coppers run up on us and we turn to Jackie Joyner. White man kill a black man, they never report us. Black man kill a white man, they gon' start a war. Mama, she was sore, sippin' on that absolute. Young niggas brainwashed, they just wanna rap and hoop. Could've been.
I wanna ask you, do you really believe I pointed a gun at 2 or 3 cops without a single shot being fired? A young black man and...
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Faron De Dios, and welcome to Rise Topics, Hotter Than the Sun. So, today's topic is the controversy going on with Meek Mills, and if Meek Mills is even eligible to be talking about reform for, the prison systems and everything. So, honestly, Meek, I'm right with you. I don't think that you pulled the gun out on a strike force. That's crazy. That's suicide. But Meek actually talked more about it in the interview with CNN. Let's check it out.
I have to play devil's advocate and ask Meek Mill this. You wrote that piece for the New York Times, and not only did I read what you wrote and watch the video, but I also read the comments that were appended to it.
Yeah.
Many of them were supportive, but many of them, Meek said, hey, you're not the right guy to take on this fight. I can put one on the screen of just something that was typical. I'm not defending our criminal justice system at all, but let's look at the facts. It was more than just a wheelie. We don't know his juvenile record. He got probation, on and on and on, got convicted for selling drugs, possessing a firearm. Essentially, it makes the argument you didn't play by the rules. And if you had played by the rules, I'm going to give you the chance, but if you hadn't played by the rules, you wouldn't have had issues with the system.
I always dreamed too of being like on like CNN and being able to express myself and speak for like the voiceless young men of America. The first step I would say, I grew up in America in a ruthless neighborhood where we're not protected by police. We grew up with people selling drugs on our neighborhood, on our front steps. We grew up in ruthless environments. We grew up around murder. You see murder 7 days a week. I think if you grew up in my neighborhood, you see 7 people die a week, I think you would probably carry a gun yourself. Would you?
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah,
yes.
if you seen your neighbors and family members, or you seen one of your best friends you grew up with get your brains blown out, I think you would want to protect yourself. Second of all, my first juvenile arrest, going to school, being suspended, I didn't want to tell my mother that I was suspended from school because my mom would have to take off from work. She was a single parent, and my father was in the graveyard. So, I was afraid to tell my mom I was suspended. I went to school on a suspended day. That was my first arrest as a juvenile for being in school. I guess the charge was trespass.
Yo, that's real rap, Meek. Facts. Because let's just be real. Where you grow up determines, what your ideals is in life. And let's just be real, people that's elite. If you all grew up in the hood, y'all had to experience things that, people that grow up in the hood experience, you were most likely to be a different person at the end of the day, okay? The zip code that you grow up in determines, your outcome in life. It determines what track you're put on, okay? If you grow up in a prominent area, no matter what state, if you grow up in a prominent area, a prominent zip code, you automatically have a good start. If you grow up in a zip code that's in the hood, then you automatically have a hard start, okay? It's hard for them, okay? Put yourself in somebody else's shoes and then determine if that person is actually eligible, okay? You sitting real cozy, behind a home theater and everything, watching things, but at the same time not able to comprehend and interpret how that other person has to live their life. And let's just be real. For example, like the topic of drug addiction, and maybe if they decriminalize drugs, it'd be a rise in less criminal activity, right? Let's just be real, okay? Because they did it in other countries already, and what happens is when they decriminalize the drug, there's literally less people going to jail, and they're able to switch out the money and put that money into medical institutions to help for addiction. You cure addiction with medical help, okay? You don't cure addiction with going to jail. But let's dig right back into it, okay? So Meek talked more about it in the same CNN interview. He further explained, you know, his life and what he had to go through. Let's check it out.
18 years old, I was arrested by the narcotic strike force, which most of these guys were federally investigated. Most of these guys were found out to be liars. They lied on the stand and was proven to be liars. I was arrested for pointing a gun at a whole strike force. Do you know what a strike force? A strike is when 5 or 6 cops come to do a bust. I was arrested for pointing a gun at 2 or 3 cops without any shots being fired. And this is for America. Now we have like cameras and hand cameras. I want to ask you, do you really believe I pointed a gun at 2 or 3 cops without a single shot being fired? A young black man and
Yeah, I don't know what the underlying facts are. I just don't want to ignore the argument that some make that, hey, Meek Mill's not the guy who should be making this case.
I just want to explain it. I just want to know from a personal opinion, do you believe a young black man in America can point a gun at 2 or 3 cops? Because I'm not the only one that get found guilty for these things. Cops charge people with these things at an alarming rate, and people take deals because they don't have lawyer money or they can't afford attorneys to even fight for their freedom. Do you believe that a young black man can lift up a firearm and point a gun at 2, 3 cops while they're attempting to do a bust with their firearms out and not a single shot being fired? That don't even make sense in America. And I never really spoke on that because I never valued myself growing up in a ruthless environment. I seen that happen to many kids, so it was just normal to me. And as I grew up, I always felt embarrassed being around like my Caucasian friends. And I used to always say, like, do you believe I pointed a gun at a cop? Where I come from, like, I'm on a successful path. I got sense. Pointing a gun at a police officer is suicide for a black young man. I never thought about committing suicide in my life, so that's almost like disrespect to me. And I was accused by another black cop, which things I speak on my album Championship, where I talk about self-hate. So I don't know how people could say that they don't think I should be the face of it. I was wrongly accused. I was sent to jail multiple times for not even committing crime. I've been sent to jail at least 2 or 3 times just for being addicted to Percocets and never sent to rehab. I was sent to jail for popping a woolly. If you follow me on Instagram, which many of these kids in America do, I've been popping woolies on my Instagram across America for the last 10 years, and I never was arrested. The farthest it ever went was a traffic ticket. And my whole message to get across is if somebody like myself who's doing so good for myself, I'm not involved in crime, I've been working, I employ people, I pay taxes, if probation can stalk me down and bring me back to a state penitentiary without committing crime, what could it do to these other kids that are trapped in these environments surrounded by crime and violence? They don't stand a chance. You have thousands of kids that will be destined to be put in prison for the rest of their life. Their beds are already made up.
All right. So, the first time they booked my man's Meek was because he got suspended. You feel me? And he went back to school because, you know, his mom is a single parent. That's understandable. You feel me? He ain't want to play the street, so he tried to go to school. And they arrest my man's. You feel me? Then he addicted to Percocets like a lot of people, you know, was popping them joints. But instead of them saying giving him treatment, they put him in jail. Like I said, the secret society that we know it today as the U.S. will not decriminalize most things, you know, that people use as drugs because they don't want to decriminalize addiction. But moving on, this is crazy. Then ultimately, after everything else, they did what they did over popping a willie. Yeah, it's crazy. But shout out to Meek Mills for everything that he's doing. You know, Jay-Z, everybody that's in the whole movement because it's well needed in today's society. So I'm Faraón de Dios. Thank you for watching Ra's Topics, Hotter Than the Sun. Oh, Ra.